Welcome back to the Quantum Guide Show. Today in episode 168, I'm very happy to bring back my friend Don Rogers. In September of 2023, Don started having a succession of nightmares and memories of intergalactic warfare. Some of these events seem to be happening in the future. Thankfully, his partner, known as Canadian Spinja, had been on a podcast information deep dive into the spiritual and paranormal, and finally convinced Don to listen to a podcast about the super space program, and it immediately resonated with him. Don contacted Robert Khalil of the Typical Skeptic podcast, where he was given the opportunity to be put into hypnotic regression. And then everything started to make sense, and he truly began his spiritual awakening. To find out more about Don Rogers and his journey, all of the links are featured below in the description. Check us out, subscribe to our channels, leave us comments, like our videos, and share our content with your friends. Welcome, Don. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you, Karen, for having me back again.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. So I would say I know quite a bit about all the different rabbit holes that have to do with the paranormal and extraterrestrial contact and stuff, but I've done the least amount of research on the secret space program. And the reason I have done very little research into it is because a lot of the experiences are very frightening that people talk about. They talk about the 20 and back, they talk about MK Ultra, they talk about being tortured by, American black op organizations. They talk about having to do terrible things in the solar system. They talk about being killed and then brought back to life over and over again and no escape possible. And to me, it's really, really terrifying. But I thought, since I know you quite well, I would bring you on. And I know that not everybody who experiences the secret space program has the same experiences. So I'm sure that they're not all the same. But I thought I'd bring you on and talk to you about your experience. And maybe we can start off with how it started and what your experiences so far have been like.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you had said in the introduction, which you absolutely nailed. Like September of last year, there was nothing in particular going on in my life. I had a workaday job, very good workaday job. It was gross. I was driving a septic truck, but it paid damn good money. And like nothing was really wrong with my life. And now my ears are ringing. That's funny. It just seemed like I was having a workaday life. And then all of a sudden there was this interruption for like, I'd say it was at least 9 days straight where I just nightmare after nightmare of dying and battle. And these things that I was fighting weren't human. The ones I was seeing, they were like 9 foot tall reptilians. And we're going to get the warning for that. But there was like 9 foot tall reptilians I was fighting. I can even like name, like tell you what their skin texture was. It was almost like an orange dolphin like texture, but it looked like the scales of a snake. Like I was that close to these things. I was bringing back tactile experiences. I damn near wet the bed the one night because it was so horrifying. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, but as far as like the Montauk thing and the SRA and all of that, I never really had that. Mine was more of a super soldier program, like you said, in the future. The parts that I remember anyhow. And it really did strike me as odd. It's like, okay, how can I remember the future? Like this hasn't happened. Well, that brings me into like my time on the Typical Skeptic and the relationship I developed with Maya after with the hypnosis. And I'm just going to jump to something really quick, and I'm sorry if I'm squirreling, but
Oh,
in
it's okay.
hypnosis, you do what's called past life regression, right? Dolores Cannon perfected the technique, and could take you anywhere. But if you also understand that in quantum physics and quantum mechanics, time isn't linear. Well, if you can look at your conscious existence on this plane in the past, then you certainly can in the future and in every other direction. Much like your very own Nubby Ball principle, every stage of my consciousness is somewhere throughout existence. And
Mm-hmm.
through the hypnotic regression, we're able to go to the super soldier program time frame where I'm able to revisit. And one of the things in a more recent session that I discovered, well, it's something that I knew, but I could never quite figure out. You had just mentioned as well the 20 and backs. When I was 15 years old, I had a dream about leaving my mom's house because I used to sleepwalk, and well, that's a whole other thing. But when I went to sleep that night, I dreamt I slept walked, and then I woke up and I had been in high school for 5 years that night. Now, allow me to explain. Much like your own experience, I went to high school for 5 years off planet in an entire night. I
Yep.
went from like your basic high school experience to some of the more advanced stuff was like learning how to fight earth creatures, learning how to fight off-world creatures. Like you were put, and they never let you die. They in school, they would never let you die. They would literally let you get to the point of death, and then they whatever you would fight in would be neutralized, and you were taken out, and you were put in the vat. And there's I literally had like a 5 year experience in the matter of one night when I was 15 years old. And it was shortly after that that I actually left my human home because I felt like I was more grown up than my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
literally just woke up one day and felt this way because I had experienced 5 years of my life overnight.
Yep.
And that part of my life confused people. They're like, how does a 15-year-old have an apartment? How does a 15-year-old go to school? How has he got a job? Like I was 15 years old and doing things that some adults can't do. And
Mm-hmm.
it's because I had spent 5 years in one night.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just some of the interesting things that have happened to me since my awakening. Um, but I think the best explanation of it is exactly what I was alluding to is like it's all stages of your consciousness because like there are parts of my story that I remember when I was 5 years old. Waking up, I didn't actually open my eyes. I woke up to a voice in my head, like MK Ultra, and the voice told me how to get out of my second story bedroom, walk downstairs while asleep, and it directed me out of my house. Now, when I got outside, we were in a very rural area. There were two people that all I could see was like refracting light and what looked like a Mercury circle. And they took me through that and they took me to the school that I was at. They took me to an operating room. Was laid down and they hooked everything up to my head. And the last thing I remember is a man a man, something with large eyes, looking me in the face and saying, "We're really sorry, but you need all of this now." And that was the first time I got a download. And except it was pumped into my brain at 5 years old. And it
Five
practically,
years.
I hate this word, but it practically made me retarded for like 2 years. Like I couldn't read, I couldn't write, I couldn't get my head around anything to do with being on Earth because
I
I
just,
just had massive dump put into my head.
yeah, yeah, I know what that's like. So I just have a couple questions.
Yeah.
So at 5 years old, you had that experience. It sounds a lot like people who describe their extraterrestrial abductions. I'm not talking about contactees, I'm talking about abductees. They're often taken to places where there's mixed, um, maybe secret ops, American military type installations working with ETs, or perhaps ET, or even on a big ship. Do you feel like there was any of that in your 5 year old experience, or do you just not remember those aspects of your experience?
Um, it was absolutely an integration of something with humans and something off our planet. And even in the regression, Maya really went in because she wanted to know where I was. And it looked like the moon, is all I'm going to say. When
Yeah.
I was in my regression, everything around me was gray, desolate. It looked like a military or government style facility. It was a place of learning and military operation. Like I was taken to a military surgery room and
Hmm.
hooked up to the shit, and it was pumped. I have absolutely no doubt that whomever the agreements are made with, it involves humans and things
Yeah.
of not of our density or reality.
Yep. Yep. That sounds quite common in people's experiences. So that what happened to you when you were 5, and then you had 2 years where you were disconnected. It sounds like you were disconnected from the three-dimensional reality around you. Was it because you were processing information, or was it you were in almost comatose but conscious state? What do you think it was happening during those 2 years?
Um, well, if I can skip back to almost directly after it, I think they overloaded me and I was just on an autopilot or some type of thing was running through my head because shortly after that, and I mean within like a week, my grandparents came to our house where we lived, and we went into the closest town where they went to a pub and eatery. I'd have been, like I said, about 5 years old, and somebody said something or did something to my biological human sister, who is like a year and a half older than me. And at 5 years old, I put a physical domination on a fifth grade student that you wouldn't see in a modern day movie. I was picking this kid up, and I've never been a big person. I was picking him up, throwing him across the road, running his head into the wall, like had just
Wow.
completely snapped out. The next week was school, and it turns out that that kid was the school bully, and
Interesting.
everybody had known about it. The teachers welcomed me with open arms because apparently this kid needed his ass whooped, and he got it finally. Um, After that, I was in about my third or fourth day of school. I got stopped by three grown men in suits in the washroom in the school and cornered up against the wall and told never to hurt anybody like that again. And these men were not teachers.
Hmm. That's
So
strange.
I don't know how much of this is happening in which density, but that I know happened in this reality that after, like, my mom can tell you that story. My sister can tell you that story about me getting in my first bar fight when I was 5.
Hmm.
And I put a hurting on this kid, and I was like accosted by three grown men in the bathroom of a school in Desborough, Ontario.
Hmm. Hmm. That's unusual for sure. So
Yeah.
then let's skip forward. So then was your life maybe not normal, but somewhat normal until what's the next point that you had kind of unusual circumstances?
At age 15, I did develop an alcohol issue, and I think that basically put my mind in a form of stasis because these things, like what I knew about the metaphysical and spiritual and afterlife before last year, was enough for an average person to get by. Like, yeah, I was pretty sure I saw something in the sky once. I think ghosts are real, and I might have saw a UFO. You know what I mean? That
Hmm.
was my understanding, and now it's just the difference in the understanding and awareness of the things that I shut down with alcohol.
Yeah.
It was I shut this part of my brain off for many years because one, I wasn't in a mental state to deal with it, and
Yeah.
two, I probably would have abused it because like the understandings of the reality that surround us that I'm starting to get in the state of mind I was and with how hard my life had been, I probably would have manipulated it for the wrong reasons.
Hmm. That's
Um,
interesting because I also, being a lifelong person who's been aware of my paranormal side, I also turned to alcohol and I was self-medicating, but more that I wanted to fit in. So you could go to the bar and drink and talk silly, and it was just considered normal. And but it also helped shut things off. And then later, when I had problems with alcohol, I turned to different mood stabilizing drugs, and went to mental health and stuff because I didn't want to be a crazy person. Like I
Yeah.
had enough problems and I needed to fit in more. But enough about me. I just wanted to validate that self-medicating seems to go along with when we've had early life experiences for sure. So then at what point, or was that it until September of 2023, or was there anything else in between?
Um, there was a lot, like I actually dated some people in the spiritual community, and there was always that inkling there, like you're not paying attention to something. And I actually just said this to Spinja is like, my life has been hard for the last 25 years. And maybe it's because I was ignoring everything.
Yeah,
Because I was given some insight to things like I'm having rememberings now that I know I've known for years, and I
yeah,
chose to be neutralized and in that state of mind. And I think that's why a lot of my life was as difficult as it was, because I would have little blips where it's like, wait, I think that might have been a ghost, and nah, that's stupid. Shut up. Have a beer, right?
yeah.
And I shut it off for 25 years because I just couldn't deal with it,
Yep.
and it would pop
I
up.
totally can totally relate to that. You know,
Uh,
life is hard enough. You don't want to be an outcast and an oddball on top of everything else. I also was not mentally ready to deal with my life and my experiences until, well, much later than you even. So I totally hear you on that. I think that's really, really common. I think a lot of what we call mental illness is people not following the direction of their soul, where their soul wants them to go in a certain direction and they're fighting it generally to stay connected within the three-dimensional social reality. But what's interesting for me is once I decided to go all in with and follow my soul and my journey, my true journey. For a while I was isolated, and occasionally I still get disenfranchised, I guess, for lack of a better word. But I found so many people with in community, and it's a whole caliber above what I ever could have had in the mainstream world. So yeah, for sure. Interesting how it goes. So let's move on to 2023. So you started having these nightmares and dreams, and some of them seem to be in the future. And this happened. How often did this happen again?
it actually, like I had nightmares for a little bit, and then they'd come and go and come and go, and then it was like it was 7, 8 or 9 days straight. It
Yeah.
was just horrific. Like I could not get a wink of sleep. I was a walking zombie. Like there was an alarm going off in my head. Like, pay attention to this, or we're just gonna keep kicking the crap out of you. We're no, wake up. Nah, hey, we're done waiting.
Mm-hmm.
You have other stages of your consciousness. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I really don't know if the super soldier program was put into my awareness to jumpstart my awakening because nothing else was working, because it terrified me into looking in another direction,
Mm-hmm.
or if it was literally just time for me to come online and share these things with other people. I still don't know. I'm learning every day.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it really did just sort of kick off in that week span. And it, like I said, like it would be like battles, and there's like thousands of us against thousands of them. Like we have biomechanical suits that interact with our body where we can defy the laws of earth physics to do this, that. It really is a completely different stage of my consciousness that I all of a sudden became aware of it.
Yeah. Did
And
you
then
feel, sorry, go ahead.
go, no.
I was just going to say, did you get a sense that you were working on behalf of Earth or the United States or Canada? You and I are both Canadians, so
Yeah.
maybe I should keep it to that. Or did you feel that you were part of a larger force? Was it contained within a solar system, or was it an intergalactic experience from what you can tell?
basically what I've been able to ascertain is what it is actually uh, extra dimensional participation in earthbound experiences, except a little more easy than we do it now. When I'm in the battles I'm in the future, I'm not even in this form. It's like I can just take a human clone or a blank, as I refer to them as blanks in everything that I've been writing, and you're
Mm-hmm.
just actively a human in this density again to help. This all happens after everything has gone to shit here and everything is settling back down. The Earth governments have been shown to be the piece of blah 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 they are, and
Mm-hmm.
it's literally what it is it's almost like a mercenary missionary program from a higher density whenever something from a higher density like a reptilian, because without getting too far into it, you know how you get the feeling like a gray alien is messing with you or a reptilian is. The only reason we don't see that is because we can't perceive them.
Mm-hmm.
Once the veil lifts, we will actually be able to see them and be able to understand what we're fighting. And once it gets even further into the future, we'll actually have assistance from higher densities. And that's part of the program that I'm involved with in the future is a higher density being that assumes the form of a human blank and comes in to fight whatever in physical form.
Right, right. Now that's interesting too, because in my experience is not with the space program. My experience is with direct extraterrestrial contact. And what's interesting is in my experiences, they were consecutive every night for 3 months. I also had the time dilation where every night that I was gone for weeks, months. The whole process was more like 3.5 years, but it happened in 3 months of our time and only at night. And I also learned through those experiences that there is a consciousness transfer. So I have a body on the big ship that I can transfer into, and I don't need to take my physical body. And that's why I'm able to do it at night. Of course, that all overlaps with the whole concept of transdimensional travel and experience as well. So I would definitely validate your experience based on my experiences as being really true. Yeah, the other thing that was interesting about my experience is I actually can do a swap with another being's consciousness and they get to come here. So during this was after the 3 month initial experience. This was a few years later. I actually did do a swap with another being. And it was interesting because people said, Karen, where were you for 2 weeks? You didn't answer the phone, you didn't answer the door, we didn't know if you died or you're out of town or what. And my excuse was just, oh, I got depressed because there's no way I was going to tell them, that I
No,
was off having this adventure and that I had done a swap with someone else. In that case, I would be in their body and in their environment because the humans are kind of fragile and there's a limit to, we need a certain amount of gravity, the Schumann resonance, all that kind of stuff.
oh, absolutely. And to validate what you're saying, Spin and I were talking about this the one day. Like, yes, I was an alcoholic, but I was never out of control except for certain stages. But there are sections of my life that I know me, Don, right here, did not participate in.
Mm-hmm.
I either had to walk in or I walked out, or,
Yeah.
and you just get to certain stages of your life where this part of your human consciousness isn't applicable and something else takes over. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I can totally verify that too. Like I've done that several times. Like, I mean, there's 5 year periods where I don't know where I was.
Mm-hmm.
And and that actually brings me to what you were saying about the abuse and shit that a lot of secret space and secret super soldiers and all that seem to have. And this isn't a brag, and I'm not trying to say anybody's right or wrong because I think we're all right and we're all wrong, and the only way to figure it out is to talk like we're doing. But
Mm-hmm.
me myself, I never had, or I have yet to figure out any of the torturistic experiences other than dying in battle because a lot of what people are talking about has happened to me here. And you and I have talked about this in the past, where like I can literally go back to age 1 and count each year the physical trauma that I've received on this human form.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's not pretty damn ritualistic, I don't know what is. Like
Yeah.
this past year, one of the events was having my dog bite me for absolutely no reason,
Yeah.
right? It just, you can literally go back the 46 years I've been on this planet right up until the day of my birth, because I was came into this world rough. It's every year,
And
at
it's
least
about the
once.
same time. It's about the same time every year, the same month and everything, isn't it?
It's very, very close. It's within a 30-day span. Like
Yeah.
there's a cycle involved here where it gets me every year within a month of my birthday.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting too. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So,
And,
sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just squirreling up. Go ahead.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit more in detail about your 9-day experience. So you were battling reptilians. So was it humans or humans or like humans or different races battling the reptilians? And did you battle any other races of humanoids or was it just reptilians?
What I saw would most commonly be referred to in our community as like a Draco-like creature. And there's actually an episode of Rick and Morty that has something very similar to them. Uh, the robot lizard battle, if anybody wants to look it up, you'll get what I mean. They have almost like a horse-like snout. They're bipedal. They're about 9 to 12 feet tall. And they wear galactic armor. I'm not going to say spacesuit because it's actually biomechanical. Like they interact with it. All of their readings and shit are right on the touchpads and everything. Same shit we have in the future too. But no, this is a very particular race. Like I was saying, they have a dolphin like skin texture that looks like a snake. Um, right here is like white, right? They're orange everywhere else, but like from their chin to their belly, when you take their suits off, they actually have a tender inner like we do as well. Like they're just a two-legged lizard that's smart enough to talk and fight. Like it,
Mm-hmm.
that's about the easiest way I can explain it. And that's really the only thing I've done battle with that I can remember. But like I was saying, in my off-world high school experiences, I was fighting things like dogs, cats, and I mean like mountain lion cat, cat with 2 legs, cat with arms, cat like you would just go through a section of how to fight every cat, and either you would win or lose or whatever. But you were taught how to fight everything.
Mm-hmm. And were you with a human army or was it a mixed race army that was on your side?
This was definitely human because, like I was saying, they all take the conscious being that's inside of me takes possession or swaps, like what you're saying, into a blank humanoid form to do battle with them when they show up. So
Mm-hmm.
it is basically a humanoid army.
Yeah, that also in my transdimensional experiences to the big ship, I have a body there. I have no idea how they keep it healthy or whatever, but there's also the what I call the one size fits all clone. And anybody can come and join, be on the big ship and use one of those clones. And it's interesting because although they're basically identical and nondescript, you can tell who's who by their mannerisms, the way they walk, the way they do things, and of course we all communicated with telepathy, which another question I have for you, did you guys use telepathy or were you using voice?
It's all in the head.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's funny that you talk about having the clone body or what have you, because again, talking about this reality, this existence, um, I have what I refer to as somnambulistic abilities. I
What would that,
can,
what does that
I
mean?
can, I can walk, talk, rationalize, go to the washroom, eat, everything, but be awake while I'm awake or while I'm asleep. Sorry. Spinja has asked me to do things. We've had arguments while I've been completely asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll wake up cross with me in the morning and do you not remember? I'm like, no, because my body is here as a blank because my consciousness is helping somebody else. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my body doesn't have to defend itself in my own home, but there's the odd time that it needs to have a bodily function or it's been interrupted and my
Yeah.
consciousness doesn't make it back in time and it'll just get up and start walking around. So
Mm-hmm.
I
That's
this
interesting.
body has been the blank. Like my consciousness has left this body and it just leaves it running around here sometimes. And apparently it's pretty funny because like I don't even sound like me. It's just yeah, it's okay. And
Yeah.
it's just
Like
muted.
Dave's not home, man. Dave's not
Yeah,
home.
like
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. Interesting. So, I wanted to sort of branch off a little bit and talk about, I don't know if you're familiar with the many worlds theory, but the many worlds theory is that there are infinite number of Earths, there's infinite number of Dawns and Karens living on Earth, but we make different decisions, we have different timelines. And I believe that there's bleed over because even with my extraterrestrial experiences, my brother said to me when I told him about it, he said, Karen, you're remembering the future. And it felt true somehow that I was remembering something that hadn't even happened yet. I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on that, Dawn? Do you think that's possibly another thing that could be happening to us that, or do you think it's all happening in the same dimensional reality?
oh, I think that there are absolutely an infinite number of possibilities in universes. One of which I kind of wish Ray was home from school right now. Um, there's actually been bleed over in our house. Um, a couple of times in the last few weeks. Like he was doing dishes, I was sitting in the living room, and he comes in and looks at me and laughs. He's like, "Okay, so that wasn't you." I'm like, "What?" Because apparently the other version of me had walked out of the living room and behind him while he was doing dishes in the kitchen. Well, the only thing is, I'd usually just laughed at him and thought he was a screwy teenager, except for the fact I was sitting in the couch on the couch looking at my phone and thought that Spinja had come halfway into the room, turned around and laughed, and went back out. So I saw the same thing Ray did just out of my peripheral. I'm like, wait, that wasn't your mom. And he's like, no, she's still in the bathroom. So there
Mm-hmm.
was another version of me so closely associated to this timeline that we've actually vibrated into each other's timelines every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
Um, shoot, where was there was something else I was going to say there. It'll come back to me. I just lost it there.
That's okay. That's good. I got another question. Sorry for asking you so many questions. But I think the Mandela effect is also evidence that maybe even all of humanity shifted because I actually had a vision or a download. I'm not sure what you want to call it. There's overlap in how you could describe my experiences, but that everybody on Earth actually died in 2012, all of us. And we were shifted to another reality. And it was interesting that after 2012, we started seeing results of the Mandela effect. I'll just give you, I'm not going to screen share diagrams, but I'm just going to give you the two most huge ones for me was there is a very iconic image that you could find anywhere. And it was the farmer and the farmer's wife. And the guy's standing there in front of I don't know if it's a house or a barn. He's got the pitchfork and beside him is this old woman he's an older guy. There's the old woman, her hair's in a bun. She's got kind of granny glasses down on the end of her nose, and she's kind of a little stern looking, right? Well, now when you look it up, it's the farmer and his daughter. He's standing there with a young woman now. Like that is so different.
Yeah,
Another one, yeah, and another one that's really weird is North and South America. South America used to be under North America, and it wasn't so close to the eastern coast. Now there's this huge body of water, like between Japan and the United States, you know, where Hawaii is, this
Yeah.
huge. And then when you look at the map, South America is off to the side and very, very close to Africa. That was not like that all my years of growing up. And being an older person, I've got a lot of memories. And I'm telling you, it's not the same. And another one is the Mona Lisa. There used to just be one Mona Lisa painting there, and it was really famous. Well, now there's a whole bunch of them. Like, this is just like, it fucks with my head, pardon my language, but to
No.
me, it's clear evidence that we are no longer living in the same um, or the same, I don't know if it's the same world or the same dimension, because that's even hard to sort of slice and dice and put your finger on. Anyway, what are your thoughts, Dawn? Have you noticed any of that weird stuff going on?
Hi guys, break time for a short message. YouTube will not monetize me, so if you enjoy my content and want to support my efforts, help me to cover my expenses by visiting my shop to buy yourself a beautiful orgone generator. Zendome's Orgonite are my unique brand, and they are ethically sourced, handmade, and double charged for maximum effect. They are only available through my website, www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com. Many people are finding comfort with Zendome's orgone generators, commonly called Orgonite. They are a simple compound which balance ambient energy by converting negative energy and EMF into positive healing energy with many easily confirmed health benefits. They are a simple compound with alchemic and energetic properties. These devices function as self-driven, continuously operating, highly efficient, negative to positive energy transmutation factories. They help diminish the harmful effects of electromagnetic frequency radiation by attracting and converting negative energies, retuning them into new and more healthful sound and light wave patterns. And they help to purify the atmosphere and accelerate plant growth. They also help stimulate positive mood and are a natural remedy for poor sleep patterns. When Orgonite is within range of any corded or wireless electronic device, it will efficiently and continuously transform that energy into orgone as it is being transmitted. This essentially creates orgone energy transmitters out of any and all emitters of harmful negative energy. You can use these devices for focusing the mind, healing, meditation, and for spiritual growth. Zendome's Orgonite are my unique brand of orgone generators, and they are only available through my website. Don't be fooled by imitations. Check out my website to see my latest selection at www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com. That's KarenHolton healthcoach.com. Check them out today. Now, let's get back to the show.
Yes, and I'm going to plug the future episode of what we're doing with Stephen from BG Cast and Jennifer Helgam. I'm going to touch deeply on the entire concept of how our reality is shaped when we get to that.
Wonderful.
But all I can say about the Mandela effect is, as a 4-year-old boy, I remember the day my mom took me clothes shopping and let me pick them out for myself. And I know what fucking underwear I bought and I know what was on them.
Yeah.
So that's what I say about the Mandela effect. You're absolutely right. There has been shifts in our reality. There has been changes made. And we're vibrating. There's a million different realities and we're choosing each one with our intentions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Some of us have chosen to continue to survive beyond 2012 and make this, and we're about to do it again because there's two versions of reality. Those of us that are like you and I that are more in tune with the spiritual aspect of life and the vibration of the universe, and those that are willing and happy with going into the technocracy that's about to happen,
Yeah.
those are about to split again.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. So I'll go as far as to say 2025, you're going to see a huge difference in the behavioral patterns of people. I already look at people that I don't really talk to anymore, and it seems like I'm watching a show,
Mm-hmm.
right? They don't seem like we're on the same level anymore,
Mm-hmm.
or vibration, or frequency, or resonance, which is
Mm-hmm.
everything our universe is made up of, is frequency, resonance, and vibration. If
Yep.
you don't, if you're not with them anymore, then you're probably experiencing life differently than everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
right? We do have base timelines, like there's the one you and I want to be on, and then there's the one, the technocracy, but yours is going to be slightly different than mine. It's going to be slightly different than Spinge's, because each one of us is going to vibrate our own universe, our own molecules, our own ions in a different manner, and
Yep.
create everything around us. Now, sometimes you do get a glimpse of somebody else's reality that doesn't seem like yours, and you're like, that's not right.
Yeah.
And basically what
Shocking.
we're
It's
looking at,
shocking sometimes.
yeah, that, yeah, that's
So,
my take on that.
yeah, no, it's good take. So yeah, I'm going to just tell the audience, we have coming up about the third week in June. I'm starting a 3-part panel, and it'll be I think the third Wednesday of June, July, and then the final one in August. And we're going to be talking about the simulation theory. And that's a little different than the many worlds theory. I'm not going to get into it too much here, but we're going to get into, you know, our basically how we see it, why we see it as a simulation, and what simulation theory is all about, but also how to manifest within the simulation. So I'm calling it Harness the Simulation. So if you haven't already subscribed, do subscribe and stay tuned. That's going to be very, very interesting indeed. And so Dawn and Canadian Spinja and BG Cast and Jennifer Halcame are all going to be on the panel with me. So that's going to be a super interesting conversation. God only knows where that's going to go, eh, Dawn?
Yeah, you've just struck something in my head when you were talking about many worlds. Didn't there used to be a TV show where it took place on different versions of Earth?
Oh,
Like there was,
there's been several. There's been several where they're solving crimes and stuff and they go, yeah, there's been actually there has been a lot of shows about it. I can't think of the names off the top of my head, but Netflix just put in the search and Netflix, and I'm sure you'll find 2 or 3, and they're series, so they're quite long and they show what it's like. Yeah. So that
yeah,
would be very interesting. And also, research I've done into time travel, they also claim that they can only go back or forward a certain amount of time because they're never on exactly the same timeline. So it's like the trick is getting back to your own timeline. So
yeah,
yeah, there's a lot that we're is being information that's being held from us that is kind of mind bending for sure, but super, super interesting. You can have 2 people living in 2 houses that are side by side, and one can be experiencing hell and the other can be experiencing heaven. And I think that's why it's really important. Part of my message is for people to create their own reality, literally invest in it, commit to it, and create it, live purposely and create it, because it's a lot more, we have a lot more flexibility in reality. So I think we have like our individual personal realities as well as our collective. And then one other thing I wanted to say is Jason from Archaics, he talks a lot about us living in a simulation. He has a little bit different take on it, but he says what we need to do is just orient ourselves towards what we want, and the simulation will provide. Anyway, I don't want to get off topic too much. I just wanted to throw that out there because it does make room for validating experiences other people have, like the secret space program, like ET contact, This stuff is very real, even though it's sometimes hard to believe, but maybe that's just because the perspective we're looking out from is a very different perspective than someone else. And perspective seems to have great creative power and magic. I don't know. What's your take on that, Don?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, you and I had discussed, well, me, you, and Spinja again had discussed like the manifestation practices that we've gone into over the last couple of years, and some of which without even knowing, just being sick of being beat down in life. Like, we came to Alberta in a last ditch effort to like be able to survive, basically. And it was like we got to a point where all we had left was honest intention, and that's when things started switching. Like, we live where we want to live, we drive what we want to drive, and she has the job that she wants to have. And it's just like, wait, how did all this happen? Oh, because we wanted it for the right reason. So I really do think that you are able, if you come at it as a place of from a place of pure energy, like pure intention, that the world is more, or the simulation is more likely to give you what you're trying to get. Like, you're trying to move things forward in this existence for a positive outcome, and I think that's the type of thing that the universe or the simulation responds to.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The other thing too is that we are now looking at a completely new kind of physics. And for those of you who want to learn more, I really recommend the Joe Rogan podcast with Terrence Howard. And it was just recently came out. And this guy has completely basically broken the old paradigm, which requires platonic solids and straight lines, and into a completely curvy reality. It's brilliant, brilliant work, but he shows that we're all connected. There's no such thing as dark matter and dark energy. We're all connected, and we're connected through these spaces of where we're unable to perceive what is a natural part of reality. But I just want to recommend that to everybody out there who wants to do further research on this. But I do believe we're all connected. So I think we're somehow connected to all the many worlds that are possible. Now, what I'm wondering, and what is your thought on this, Don, is do we share the same soul? All the Karens and all the different worlds, are we all sharing the same soul? Because if our soul is in the higher dimension, it is possible, like individuality as we perceive it, you being Don, me being Karen, is a three-dimensional phenomena. Once we go into the higher dimensions, things are more integrated. So I'm just wondering, do you think we share the same soul, or do you think we have different souls, or do you think that our current consciousness is our soul experiencing one of the many worlds at a time? I don't know. What's your take on it?
I think our consciousness, we do definitely come from I shouldn't say definite, my current perception of it. We definitely come from a large, I did it again, come from a larger source of ourself, right? But I think what is Dawn right now having this conversation with Karen is just a fractalization of what is my actual self, my higher self. There is more to me. There's more fractals over here, over there. And that's like what your brother was saying, and what I've been able to figure out with my time in the Super Soldier program is it's just a different stage of my consciousness. Like, it might not even be something from this lifetime. It might be a past life. It might be a future life. It might be a side life. It might be a left or a right life. It could be up or down. I don't know. But there are billions of pieces of my consciousness, because if you go by the source theory, we all came from source. So if I fractalized into a fractal, into a fractal, into a fractal, into a fractal that is Dawn, that's just a little piece. But when I vibrate and resonate with another piece of me, we start to get like a walkie-talkie thing going, where it's like, hey, I like what you're saying with you're seeing the future, or myself, I get overlay where it's like, I've looked at Spin and went, look, there's about 10% of me that isn't here. I'm actually on a spaceship. And she's like, I get it. Because that literally is another piece of your beginning of existence, right? We just sent different pieces of ourselves into Source wanted to know what it was all about. So we're like, yeah, we'll do it. And we did, right? That's why you get overlay, lap, time, space everywhere. We are everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes you can do the other version of yourself.
Yeah, I get overlays too. One day I was walking down the street and all of a sudden, all the cars were completely different. They didn't have wheels. They were all floating above the ground and they were shaped quite differently, but they were still identified as, cars, what we would consider a car. And it was really interesting and everything looked completely different. It was almost like I had walked into a different dimensional reality. And then after a short period of time, maybe 10 minutes, I just kept walking and then it dissolved and I was back in my regular three-dimensional reality. I've had so many experiences that I can't explain, but it leaves me open-minded to listen to other people's experiences and validate them. They're, it's not like everyone's a bunch of liars and we're all making shit up and to get fame and glory. Personally, there's very little fame and glory in it in the first place. But second of all, I think these are real perceptions that people are having. And I think they all deserve to be validated. And we bring them all together, we get an idea of what the whole looks like. So it's like the elephant. Someone comes along and touches the ear. If you were say you took 5 blind men and they approach an elephant, one touches the ear, one touches the trunk, one the tail, one the foot, one the, I don't know, eye, something else. And well, hopefully not that, but anyways, something else. And they would describe the elephant as being quite different, but it's still an elephant. And so my big thing has always been, I want to see the elephant. I want to see the elephant. So even back in the days when I was still doing religion, I wanted to see the elephant. I was tired of looking at ears and trunks and tails, So that's sort of my take on it. What's your take, Don?
Oh, yeah, like the perception of our reality is always going to be different for everybody. And, much like yourself, that's what I was saying earlier. I think the Super Soldier program or Secret Space program shook me awake for my awareness because it's like, I've said this on other things too. Like, as soon as I got past, because it was a big mental hump to realize, like, holy crap, I can see something from my future or a different existence. Once I got past that, I was like, okay, then this entire universe is fascinating because if that's real, that means that unicorn is probably real. That lady talking about that dragon is probably telling the truth. Well, now I want to know about all of it.
Yeah,
right. And
exactly.
Exactly what you're saying. I think part of it where we're ever going to get any type of disclosure or understanding of ourselves is like getting everybody's story, putting them together and seeing where everything lines up, because where you can see where everything lines up is obviously the closest thing to our reality. Right.
I think that's the secret to everything. I think once humans, regardless of their background, education, religious beliefs, skin tone, once we come together and recognize what we have in common, we can start working together for what we have in common. And that is what's going to bring a dramatic change to this world, because the so-called powerful elites and stuff, they only have the power we give them. So as soon as we stop giving that power and taking it back, which reminds me, in the secret space program, who's winning? I know you're kicking reptilian butt, and I'm assuming you're with Team Light. And so who's winning?
Yeah. Oh, like mankind has already won. There is no government, so to speak, anymore. We've actually gone back to the Earth Agreement. By 2200, we've actually gone back to the Earth Agreement where we were supposed to just be here and be part of and vibrate with the Earth. So there is really no more need for an authoritarian government or whatever. But we just come back kind of like the ass kicking squad. And it's like, oh, look, reptilians, let's kill them. Right. And we do. But it's not like there's the US, Russia, or Canada anymore. It's just humanity in a cohesive relationship with the planet. And if somebody tries to disrupt that, we have a problem with it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's definitely mankind winning, and the Earth is winning because we've gone back to a natural involvement with the planet.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because the powers that be have worked so hard to eliminate the indigenous cultures of this earth. And it's the indigenous cultures who had harmony with the planet. They even had harmony with each other, even though they may have been divided up into different ethnic groups and belief systems and food choices. There was actually a lot more respect than what we're taught. We're taught they're all warring against each other. No, there's not evidence of that. There's a lot more evidence for cooperation and harmony with the animals and harmony with the planet, a way of being and living. And isn't it interesting that that was stomped out by any means possible? And then the so-called good forces, and this is not against religion. If the listeners have religion, it's working for you, great. But these so-called, like for instance, the Christian church, the Roman Catholic Church, the sheer brutality and violence and extreme prejudice that they used, not just to kill off indigenous groups, to enslave them, but also to kill off women who had power by calling them witches. And oh, it's just been brutal, absolutely brutal. None of the indigenous groups have had that kind of brutality. So it's just very interesting. It's like we live in a total inversion where what we're taught is good and righteous, and in the name of Jesus is actually just horrendous. And then what we're taught is superstition and pagan beliefs and things like that. Ignorant, uncivilized indigenous people actually had such a grace and order to it, and it worked. It really worked. There used to be as many indigenous people in the United States as there are now, and they all worked and lived in harmony with each other. So anyway, I don't mean to go on and on about it, but I'm just saying that it's interesting. Now, I'm not in any way in favor of the WEF and their idea of solutions and New World Order. I'm not in any way in favor of that, but I do see a global harmony that is quite possible, and then I think that harmony will spread to other solar systems, and as we become technologically advanced in a more balanced and healthy way, we'll meet other beings, and I think that it'll just spread. But it's the way things are right now, so screwed up. No wonder ET doesn't want to have anything to do with us. And but anyway, enough about my opinions. I'm wondering if we've got a few minutes left. On what would you like to say to the listeners and the viewers, people who are just opening their minds to these experiences, or maybe having experiences themselves, similar or different, or basically, what has the secret space program taught you or encouraged you, and what information do you think would be helpful to the audience?
First, I'd say if you're having something like the situation where I was, where you're getting overlays or nightmares or even just visions in your day to day and it just doesn't make sense, don't be afraid to talk about it. Like, not everybody is going to shit on you when you come out of the crazy closet. Like Karen said, I happened to reach out to Rob Kallel, and he put me in contact with Maya, but it was a horrifying thought at first. Like, I can't talk to these people. They're going to think I'm insane. Well, no, you have to stop questioning yourself and realize that this is part of your reality and some other people might know some things about it. Now, we all have different experiences, but everybody in this community that's experiencing super soldier or secret space type things are generally pretty willing to share. And they're not all horrible, scary nightmares, but some of them are, right? So you have to take the good with the bad, but absolutely reach out and talk to somebody about it, because if you don't, you're just trying to bury something and probably making your own life more painful, like I did for 25 years.
And how did the secret space program open you up to other sort of supernatural or paranormal or just the greater and truer reality. You talk about being awakened. What does that mean now for you?
Well, like I was alluding to earlier, like there is so many things that you kind of touched on too, that like, oh, it's superstition, Greek myths, legends, blah blah. Most of those things are actually true, but we're just told by the people that put themselves in charge that that can't be true because we're in charge and that's wrong.
Yeah.
The eye-opening experience, and I would suggest this for anybody, not just Secret Space, having a paranormal experience, is start exploring more. Start looking deeper. Look into another rabbit hole. Look into another one. Because when you start figuring out what's going on around you, you start seeing that the things that you think you're crazy for aren't really that crazy because it's all true. It's all real. And we're, like you said, we're all related to one another in some fashion through quantum entanglement. Like we really, everything you think is real more than likely is. Right. And unless you step away from normal for a minute and decide to look at it, you'll never know.
Right. And my experiences and what I recommend is people take what they're ready to hear. So take what resonates with you and go down that rabbit hole. And then if you get to the point where it's too much or it's just not seeming like it's resonating anymore, then jump to something else. Like there's no rule on how you do this, but the more we learn, I think the better we are to getting ideas on how we want to create our own reality, and which includes your soul team and your spiritual experiences. There's all kinds of overlap with the paranormal in that field too. And yeah, it's very interesting. Now, Dawn, do you want to tell everybody about some of the projects you're working on right now?
Yeah, like I had said earlier, I've been doing a lot of research into the simulation theory, but I'm actually going to get back to my review shows here shortly. People like us that explore deep rabbit holes sometimes have to put other things on hold, and that's what happened to my review show for a couple of weeks. So I apologize, it's coming back, but I was stuck in a thought. But no, those are coming back. I'll still be doing my weekly review show of the Typical Skeptic podcast, which is the Roundtable show. And I'm also looking to, hopefully by the beginning of next month, maybe the middle, get that FKN review show going as well.
Which
as
is forbidden,
well, I
which
will.
is the Forbidden Knowledge News Network with Chris Matthew.
Yes,
Sorry, I didn't mean to
and all
interrupt.
of
I just didn't, in case
no,
folks didn't know what FKN meant.
yeah, yeah, no, you're. Thank you. And it'll actually be covering most of the shows on that network, the Forbidden Knowledge Network, and as well as my show, the After Dark show, which is basically about things like the Secret Space Program, Project Oblivion, Project anything that people like us tend to have figured out that's going on under the guise of government programs that nobody really talks about. We talk about it, and that's. All of that's on YouTube and Rumble on March 4th production, and it's the number 4 with TH.
Yeah. Now, when I went to find March 4th productions, I actually found there was quite a few. So if those of you who are doing the search, put in Don Rogers as well as, and it will pop up and you'll be able to find them quite easily. Now, you're also co-hosting with Maya. Do you want to tell everybody a little bit about what the work you're doing with Maya? And also, are you still part of her regression group, or I'm not sure what you want to call it?
Yeah, we've kind of put the Cosmic Crusaders, that's the name of the regression group, on hold right now because one of the members just had a baby. Spinge is working 10 hours a day, and I've got my head in a whole bunch of other projects. But that is going to be coming back, and Maya had actually talked about offering sessions if anybody wanted to try it. As well as Maya and I have the Mad Chatter show, which airs on public access radio in Vermont or Battleboro, and as well as the Taint and Tea show. And that's mostly paranormal and spiritual rabbit hole stuff. We've had UFOologists, right? I'm actually about to, tonight, we're interviewing Donald Ledstrom, who just had a movie, a documentary released on the Prime Network, CE3, The Middle. It's about aliens. But yeah, so we're doing all of that on the Mad Chatter Show and Tainted Tea, which comes on all of our channels as well.
Wow, that's quite a bit. Now, one other thing, I'm going to put a plug for Sunday's show. So I have a Facebook group, and you're all welcome to join. It's called Aliens and Angels, and it's just all kinds of stuff that's out there and paranormal and ET and angelic and everything. And on Sunday, I'm starting a community building chat group. We're going to use StreamYard, and it's going to be I'm going to hold it every Sunday at noon. And this Sunday, Dawn is going to be my special co-host. And so we're hoping that you will all come and join us on Sunday. And I will be featuring your comments, and you will be part of the discussion. And again, it just is to build community around for members of the Facebook group. Well, if you're not a member of the Facebook group, you're still welcome to come as well. And so that's noon Mountain Time on Sunday, and it'll be held every Sunday, noon Mountain Time. And Dawn's going to be my co-host this Sunday. So yeah, we got lots going on. And so I guess that's about it for today. But Dawn, do you have any, I want you to tell people where, I guess the links are in the description, but Dawn, for those that are on audio, can you tell people again where they can find you? And do you have any last minute advice to people, comments, information, anything you want to say before we end the show?
Yeah, like Karen was saying, look at March 4th Productions and Don Rogers, because I didn't realize there was more than one, but apparently. And that's on Rumble and YouTube. I'm also on Facebook. You can add me as long as you're not too weird. You know, I do delete people that just go, hey, and do you want to buy something, or
Yeah,
do you want a reading? I don't keep those people on. But yeah, I'm on Facebook. You can add me. I don't even mind talking if somebody's got questions about what they're doing or how their awakening's going, or if they're having crazy ass nightmares. I might be able to help them, or at least point them in the right direction. So
wonderful, wonderful. Well, it's been a pleasure as always, Dawn, to have a visit with you and share your hear about your insights and everything. Thank you so much for being on the show today. And I want to thank the viewers and the listeners. Thank you so much. Please do share this show with your friends and anyone that you think might be interested. And again, all the links are in the description below. So with that, we'll say goodbye, and we'll see you next week on the Quantum Guide Show. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you for joining me for the Quantum Guide Show. Become the change that you wish to see in the world. Subscribe to my YouTube and other channels at Karen Holton TV. Click the like button, leave me a comment, and share this podcast with your friends. Check out my website at www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com to see my free resources and amazing products and services. All the links will be in the description below. As part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, you will find the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton, and also the Aliens and Angels podcast on all audio platforms. Until next time, keep up the good work.